Hello, this is Dr. Grant Schmidt, Superintendent, and I am with Tamber Bernal, our Business Manager. And today we're going to talk to you about the mill levy override recommendation. The district receives funding from two main sources. Every year during the legislative session in Colorado, the legislature determines what the base funding will be per student. Based on our local property taxes, the state then determines how much of the base funding is going to be paid out of our local property tax, called the local share, versus how much the state will then pay, which is the difference, and that is called the state share. Over the last approximately 15 years, we have had a decline in the amount of local share percentage of our per pupil allocation that we receive, and an increase in our state share. For this current school year, we are at 87% from the state and 13% from local.
El Paso County assesses your property tax using two specific terms. The market value is what you might sell your property for if you were to go through a realtor, and the assessed valuation is a value calculated from which your property tax is paid. An example of that would be on the norm for housing in or for homes in our school district. On average, if you have a property that is market value of $98,853, your assessed valuation would be $7,870. And this is what we call your assessed value.
On your property tax report, you will see all of the places that tax your property. The taxes against your property's assessed valuation are actually called mills. Mills is short for millionth, which is a decimal value, and the decimal value goes out to the millionth place. So when I look at this particular number, 0.9876543, the 3 is in the millionth place, so the number would stop there. I multiply that number by 1,000 to get the actual mill amount. So in this case, the actual mill amount is 987.6543 mills.
Based on that property tax example that has been displayed, if you look at your tax statement, you will see what those numbers break out to be. How you would find that total mills number is look at the very bottom of your tax statement, and the number that has a long number out to the millionth place, that will be your total mills. So on this example, we have 0.053838 times 1,000. This particular property has 53.838 mills. Now, to find your property tax details on your own property, please visit this website. This is the El Paso County Assessor's website of http://land.elpasoco.com.
The assessed valuation for the properties within the school district, the total assessed valuation for this current school year is $35,500,000. So when we look at this historically over the last approximate 15 years, in this case 13 years, you can see that we have had a steady decline trending-wise in our assessed valuation. What you will notice is that occasionally we might have a spike up or a spike down in our assessed valuation, and that typically is because of something called an abatement, where someone challenges the value of the property that the county assessor has given you. And if you win, your property value might actually go up or it might go down. But over this 13-year period of time, the average assessed valuation in our community is declining by a negative 3.87%. So in order to determine how we should identify what the mill levy is for our district, for the override, we took that negative 3.87% and extrapolated that out to 10 additional years. So over the next 10 years, we have projected what the assessed valuation will be for the property in the school district, with the average over the next 10 years being just under $29 million.
The state has what is called base funding for all school districts. You'll see that over the last 15 years, that has gone up slightly, with right now the state funding being about $6,500 for all school districts. Now, Hanover School District, we do have some additional fundings that fall onto our factor that add to our per pupil cost. You will have cost of living, personnel cost, online, your size, number of students, your at-risk kids, how many are on free and reduced meals, and then you have the negative factor. The cost of living, it reflects the difference in the cost of housing, goods, services among each of the 178 school districts across the state. These cost differences are reviewed every 2 years to allow for timely recognition of economic changes. The factor is index-based with a range from 1.011 to 1.650 in budget year 2015-16. Personnel cost factors varies by school district based on your enrollment. For our districts, employee salaries and benefits represent the largest single expense. As such, the formula directs funding based on these costs, usually historical information, and the incorporating the above cost of the living factor. This cost is projected to range from 79 to 90 of the budget year for 2015-16. Online funding factor, it's funding provided based on the number of students in the district who actually do online programs. Your size factor is determined using the enrollment-based calculation is unique to each different school district throughout the state of Colorado. This factor is included to recognize purchasing power differences among districts and to reflect the expression of funding on a per pupil basis. Smaller districts receive greater size factors, increasing their funding overall. Districts with greater than 4,023 students receive more moderate size factor adjustments, and size factors are projected to range from 1.3 to 2.395 for the budget year of 2015-16. Each size factor was reduced by 0.045 in fiscal year 2003 to 2004. The at-risk factor is the eligibility for participation in the federal free lunch program and is used as a proxy for each school district's at-risk per pupil population. Increased funding is provided to recognize that expenses among districts vary as pupil populations vary, especially at-risk populations. For each at-risk pupil, a district receives a funding equal to at least 12%, but no more than 30% of its total per pupil funding. As a district's percentage of the at-risk population increases above the statewide average, an increased amount of at-risk funding is provided to those districts. At-risk populations are projected to range between 4.34% to 89% as a percentage of the total student population by the school district for our budget year for 2015-16.
The last factor is called the negative factor. The negative factor was put into place when the legislature took a look at how much money should be given to school districts per pupil. Then they realized that the amount of money actually brought in as revenue for the state was less than what they had expected. So in order to determine how much they could truly give to school districts per pupil, they subtracted a particular number from the total budget to determine what they could really afford. What this means is that we actually do not receive all of the money per pupil that we're supposed to receive because of the negative factor. An example is, over the last 7 years, we have lost a total of $2.2 million in revenue. In 2015-16, this school year, the negative factor, again, the amount of money we were supposed to receive versus what we really received, was $369,000. In the next 2 years, it is projected we will have lost the equivalent of one total budget year due to the negative factor. Over the last 7 years, the average loss has been $321,000.
So what all does this impact? Our staff has not received regular salary increases, and it does make it hard to retain and recruit new staff. Our school buses and vans, they are in desperate need of replacement and repairs. Our textbooks are out of date in most of our subjects. Our instructional materials, they need to be refreshed and updated. Technology definitely needs to be updated. Deferred maintenance on our buildings, we are behind on that. Staff trainings and operating costs, they have been cut back to where we are trying to train and operate on much less money every year. So, with that in mind, how can we help ourselves? What do we need to do? Under the current state of Colorado's economy and the restriction of Tabor, the only way to help recover the money that we are losing every year is through what's called a mill levy override. In this example here, you will see all of the school districts in the Pikes Peak and Pueblo area. And you will see that Hanover is in the red bar at the bottom. We are the lowest in this area for our mills. What is a mill levy override? Mill levy override is when we ask voters to increase the amount of property tax mills paid to the district, and this does not count against the percent that the state share is paid to the district. Overriding the calculation allows for the district to actually increase the revenue for the school district's annual budget. Currently, Hanover School District has 0 mills for an override.
So how much money do we as a district need? Well, if you remember with the negative factor, we are currently $2.2 million behind, and going into next year, we expect to lose another $369,000. So we will be $2.6 million behind where we should have been funded over the last 8 years. So our target average annual minimum amount that we need to receive by doing the override is an additional $460,000 per year into the budget so we can begin to catch up on where we have lost. The money will go to the things that have been impacted. So one of the things is looking at our staff and increasing their salaries so that they are competitive with our neighboring districts instead of being behind. Our school buses and vans that are in need of replacement, we can begin putting them on a regular cycle to begin finding new buses and vans and getting rid of the ones that are well over 200,000 miles. Our textbooks are out of date in almost all subjects, and since our instructional materials need to be refreshed and updated, plus our technology is needed for our students and staff, there's an additional amount of money that we are looking for at approximately $60,000. Over the last several years, the deferred maintenance, which is what we need to do annually to maintain our facilities, because we haven't had the budget, it would be approximately $3 million to catch up on where we should be with the maintenance of our facilities. So we will have additional monies coming for that. And then finally, the staff trainings and other operating costs that have been cut back significantly, we would need an additional $60,000 a year for that. So when we break it down into 2 categories, the salary category and the non-salary category, The salary mills will be 7.652 to have competitive salaries to retain our current quality staff and to recruit new staff. And our non-salary mills will be 8.348 to address the other items that were mentioned previously in this presentation that have been impacted due to the loss of almost $3 million of the negative factor.
So in a prior slide, we mentioned and we shared with you that our average annual minimum amount that we need is $460,000. But how does that translate into a mill? If you look down in this example, each one of the areas that we are needing to increase is broke out by the dollar amount to be raised and the number of mills. We are looking to do a mill levy override of 16 mills to acquire the $460,000 that is needed. What does that mean for you? What is that going to cost you as a property owner? If you have an assessed market value of $98,000, and there your assessed value will be lower than that, of the $7,870, remember that $7,870 is what you pay your taxes on. That number will equate at the 16 mil levy override to $10.49 a month, therefore costing the average homeowner in our school district $125 a year. Again, if you look at this example here, using the same average assessed value, average properties in our school district, the assessed value between $7,500 and $10,000, your monthly tax increase would be between $10 and $13 a month for us to meet our need of the $460,000 needed. If you were curious to know what that would truly mean for you and what your property is actually assessed at for your value and your taxable assessment, please go to the county assessor's website listed here. All you have to do is either type in your last name or your property address and hit search, and all of your information will be provided. You will multiply your assessed valuation by 0.016 to find your annual property tax for this mill levy override.
We thank you very much for your support of our community's school district and our students and our staff. And as always, if you have any questions, please contact us. The phone number is 719-683-2247. Thank you very much for participating and watching this conversation around the mill levy override.